A map is a handy tool for navigation. However, there's one tiny problem. Well, the Earth is a sphere, while maps are flat, and that's where the problem lies, since it's mathematically impossible to make that flat representation of the spherical Earth, so the maps can be pretty misleading since they're inaccurate. Cartographers and mathematicians have tried their best to find a solution to this conundrum. Still, it has led to distortions one way or another in their representations of the globe. Greek academic Anaximander is believed to have created the first world map in the 6th century BC. He reportedly thought the Earth was shaped like a cylinder and that humans lived on the flat top portion. Although his geography knowledge was incomplete, the map is still the first world map known to date, since most of the maps were only confined to cities alone. The Greeks knew about the world being round, which was cemented after Eratosthenes of Cyrene, also known as the godfather of geography, managed to calculate the circumference of the Earth by measuring the distance from the Sun to the Earth, which he multiplied this distance by 50 to get 25,000 miles. Today, most scientists set the Earth's circumference at 24,901 miles. This gives Eratosthenes' estimate less than a 1% error, an excellent approximation of the Earth's circumference. He got this error since he didn't calculate directly under the Tropic of Cancer, where the sun's rays are directly overhead. However, his calculations were closer to the truth. Posidonius also used Eratosthenes' method, however he used stars to measure. Even if his measurements were flawed, he was lucky enough to arrive at an almost accurate measurements that calculated the Earth's circumference to be 24,000 miles. During the 2nd century CE, Claudius Ptolemaeus, or Ptolemy, revised Posidonius' method and set the Earth to be almost 18,000 miles. In his second book, Geographia, he used the concept of longitudes and latitudes to construct a map that was also capable of defining places based on celestial bodies. Due to his contribution in the geographical and mathematical field, his calculations were used throughout the Renaissance period. Some even believe that Christopher Columbus might have set sail with Ptolemy's numbers in mind when he planned his voyage to the Far East. He would eventually discover the continent America that was hidden by Ptolemy's error. Although their calculations were flawed in one way or another, which can be attributed to the level of technology back then, the ideas were put together to form the maps we have today, creating the principle on which the three-dimensional spherical globe and the famous two-dimensional flat maps were made. Although both are efficient in their own way, with the globe being a very accurate representation of the Earth, while the map is more portable, it has been utilized with technology to make the GPS technology we use for navigation. The map, however, has some issues leading into lots of changes in the map. To make a flat map of the spherical Earth, a method called projection is used. Map projection is a method for representing part of the surface of the Earth or a celestial sphere on a plane surface. If you don't get that, imagine putting a cylindrical piece of cardboard around a globe, and by projecting the shapes onto the cardboard, once unrolled, you have yourself a map. However, there's a trade-off in each process, as proven by Carl Friedrich Gauss, one of history's most influential mathematicians. In Gauss's Theorema Egregium, which is Latin for remarkable theorem, he stated that, thus, the formula of the preceding article leads itself to the remarkable theorem. If a curved surface is developed upon any other surface whatever, the measure of curvature in each point remains unchanged, meaning the Gaussian curvature of a surface does not change if one bends the surface without stretching it. Now back to the issue on maps. After making projections, some problems arise in the form of distortions in the size, shape, and distances in the map. These distortions are a big issue as they've given us a wrong mental image of the world at large. An example would be the Mercator Projection, and this projection was developed by Gerardus Mercator back in 1596 for navigational purposes. It is often described as a cylindrical projection, but it must be derived mathematically. The meridians are equally spaced parallel vertical lines, and the parallels of latitude are parallel horizontal straight lines that are spaced further and further apart as their distance from the equator increases. Its ability to represent lines of constant course from coast to coast made it the perfect map for sailing the seas. Its popularity was so great that it became used as a geographic teaching aid, even though the projection grossly distorts country sizes. The only issues that make it less practical is the distortion of those sizes. For instance, in a Mercator map, Greenland and Antarctica appear much larger than they actually are relative to landmasses near the equator, such as Central Africa. The other distortion this projection causes is that Greenland appears larger than Australia, while Australia is approximately 3.5 times larger than Greenland. Despite the distortion, it is still helpful till now since coordinates plotted with the Mercator map will get navigators to their destinations like a compass, and that's why the Mercator projection is still used in the GPS. There are other types of map projections apart from the Mercator projection, the likes of the Gall-Peters projection, which is a cylindrical world map projection that regains accuracy in surface area, is named after James Gall and Arno Peters. While Gall first described the projection in 1855, it was not until 1973 when Peters began to heavily market the projection as the Peters world map that it became popular. He called it a new invention that allowed poorer, less powerful nations to be restored to their proper proportions. It is thought that the first use of the name Gall-Peters was by Arthur Robinson in a pamphlet produced by the American Cartographic Association in 1986. Peters argued that by enlarging Europe and North America, Mercator maps gave white nations a sense of supremacy over non-white nations. However, the Gall-Peters projection came with its own flaws. In its quest for removing size distortions, the map stretched some places near the poles horizontally to a shocking degree. It also stretched landmasses vertically near the equator. You're probably wondering why it looks weird. Well, it's because the shapes and angles are all wrong, which is one of the reasons why we don't see this map online much. Nevertheless, it's quite widely used in the British school system. And then there's the Robinson projection. Although Arthur Robinson planned on calling it the orthophonic projection, which means right appearing, the name never stuck. The map has been dubbed a compromise. It shows neither the shape nor landmass of countries correctly. Robinson developed it in 1963 using a more visual trial and error development. He told the New York Times in a 1988 interview, "I visualized the best looking shapes and sizes. I worked with the variables until I got to the point where if I changed one of them, it didn't get any better." It was only at this point that he worked out the mathematical formulas. The most accurate of all map projections is the Orthograph Projection. Japanese architect Hajime Nurukawa invented this projection in 1999 by equally dividing a spherical surface into 96 triangles. These triangles were then projected into a tetrahedron, which not only helped maintain the proportions of land and water, but also helped to unfold the map into a perfect flat rectangle. Nurukawa, however, insists that if the map is refined a step further to increase the number of subdivisions, its accuracy will improve, and it officially can be called an area equal map. The orthograph realistically represents all oceans and continents, including neglected Antarctica, and while the general shape of the continents is maintained, the only shortcoming is the squashed figure of the Arctic Circle. There are other map projections, each with its flaws, and from this, the constant truth is that only globes can give an accurate representation of the world since it's made in the direct likeness of the world itself. It possesses no flaws. That's all for today. What are your thoughts on this video? You can put it in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.